All right, hello, welcome. My name is Shaina. I'm an astrologer and tarot reader, and today I'm finally talking about tarot. I'm going to be doing more tarot videos in the upcoming year, so I'm excited about that. But today I'm doing a part 2 to the video I posted last time, which was my tarot deck tier list. Today I am doing my oracle deck tier list. So instead of just going through all the decks that I own and showing you them, I decided to rank them. Yes, I decided to make this a lot more serious, a lot more competitive, okay? A lot more judgmental, because that's what I like to do. I just also think it's more fun that way. This is my opinion about the decks that I have. You'll probably use tarot or oracle for different reasons than I do, so you'd probably feel different about these decks. So let me know if you have any of these decks, what your thoughts are about them, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, or even if you have any deck recommendations for me, if you think that you might know what I like after hearing me talk about them. I'd love to know. All right, before we jump into the video, let me get the advertising out of the way. So I sell personal birth chart readings on my website, shainaemily.com. So if you are interested in an extended reading from me, you can check out what I offer there. I also offer tarot readings if you didn't know that, and every astrology reading that you purchase, if you would like it to be tarot, is also included. I also have an astrology TikTok and a personal Instagram, but let's get into this video. So I'm sure if you've been on the internet for more than a day now, you know what a tier list is, but I'm just doing a basic one. We got the categories S, A, B, C, and D. There is no F in this list because I actually have every single oracle deck I've ever bought. I've only ever gotten rid of one deck, and that was talked about in my last video. So I've been very picky about the decks that I've chosen. However, you still can be picky about the stuff that you choose and like be wrong about it, you know? So yeah, let's just get into this video. So I'm just doing this randomly. I'm just grab bagging them, all right? All right, so for some reason, this deck is telling me, I want to go first, bitch. This is the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Oracle by Kim Krans. Now, I feel a little bit back and forth about this deck. Now, Kim Krans is an author that is quite, I guess, popular in the tarot community. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of her drawing style, but that's going to go against a lot of what it seems like. So this deck was actually a gift, I'm pretty sure. And a part of me does like the box. I always appreciate the box, but it is pretty big. It definitely is one of my biggest tarot or oracle decks, and it is kind of a pain in the ass to store, especially because it's white. I wind up just getting it knocked and making it look bad, but I do appreciate the box. I do appreciate the magnet. I do appreciate the space for a very big guidebook, especially as it is an oracle deck. I feel like with oracle decks, you need to have a big guidebook, and this one does not disappoint. And then I also really like how it has its own little spot for the deck, and it has its own little foil case. So I just think that the presentation for this deck is A tier, definitely. Out of all of the animal oracle decks, this is one of my favorites. The backs are really lame. They're just kind of this crisscross pattern, and the cardstock is really cheap. I really do not like her cardstock. It warps very easily. It bends very easily, especially because the cards are a little bit longer, which I don't mind. I like that. And I'm honestly not a big fan of the art style. It's just a little bit sloppy, a little bit half-assed looking to me, honestly. And I know I'm the only person that feels this way because I've never heard a single like bad thing spoken about Kim Krans' art style. Everybody loves it, but it looks a little bit elementary to me, especially the way that she outlines some of these cards, like this cheetah card, for example. You can see that it like kind of stops around where it says cheetah, which to me makes me think of something I did when I was a child. Now, what I do really like about it is the color choices. I like that it's kind of darker, more vivid colors. I especially really like the animals they chose. I feel like they chose really unique animals, a really wide array with a lot of personalities. So I think it is a really strong deck, and I'm really happy I have it. And honestly, if I misplaced it or if I didn't have it or something, I would want this deck. I would repurchase it. I'm definitely planning on keeping it. And it is a deck that I use fairly often. It looks like you can get it for about $20 to $25 around that category, which is a pretty good price for this booklet, especially that you're getting. I love this booklet. It has a full page of the image, and then it has a full description. And I think they did a pretty good job with the descriptions. They're pretty easy to understand. They're not too obtuse. I really like this deck. I would recommend it if you're thinking about getting it. I would get it. I'm trying to decide. I think I'm going to put it at B. I feel pretty confident at this at B. It would be an A if I liked the art style a little bit more, but it does persuade me from using it. So I think I'm going to keep it at B. Or am I going to put it at A? I'll keep it at B for now, but I'm probably going to change my mind. All right, the next one I felt drawn to, I guess, was this. This is the Mildred Payne's Oracle of Black Enchantment. It's by Deviant Moon Inc., and this is the Blood edition. So again, this is another one of the first Oracle decks I purchased. It just comes in a tuck box, so my tuck box is pretty beat up. I'm starting to realize that I should take better care of my decks, but also I don't take bad care of my decks. I've just had to move so much in such like sporadic ways, and it's just whatever. Okay. Anyways, I love Deviant Moon Inc., as I mentioned in my last video. This is a little bit of a bigger card than most. I personally really like it. I still find it easy to shuffle. I love the back of these cards. I think they're beautiful. However, the one thing that bothered me is that because this is the Blood edition, that just means that the color graphics on all the cards is different. It's black and red instead of, I think it was like brown and black, which is the color of this. It would have made sense if he made the backs black and red to match this. And I do regret getting the Blood edition, like I do regret getting the paradoxical edition of the other deck. It does make the image a little bit harder to read, but I was like, oh, this is such a spooky deck. This will be so fun. It'll go so well with my Miko Ulrich deck. But now I just see it as kind of harder to read than it would be if it was this coloring. But I really like this deck, like a lot. I think that the images are very captivating. They're very like almost like poisonous. They feel very like depraved. I don't really want to say evil, but more like perverted almost. Even if it's not like sexually perverted, it's just very odd, weird images, which he always uses. So if you don't like his style, you're not going to like this deck, but if you like his style, you're really going to like this deck. But also for so long, I did not realize that there was a booklet with this deck, because it just has little numbers in the top corner. I thought you just kind of had to figure it out for yourself and interpret it intuitively. And it wasn't until I went on his website more that I realized that there's a PDF for each deck. And I didn't know that. And I was like, I really wish that this deck came with the booklet. I feel like for the price point that it is, his decks should. And that always is a big hit for me with his stuff, because I love his stuff so much, and I can tell he takes so much care and time, and especially puts so much care and time in the booklet, that I do kind of wish that he would print it out, honestly. You know what? I actually am going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to put Animal Spirit Oracle at A, and I'm going to put the Oracle of Black Enchantment at B. I think I feel more confident about that. I would put the Oracle of Black Enchantment at S if I didn't use the Blood edition, and if it came with a booklet, and if the card stock wasn't so cheap, and if it wasn't a tuck box. Then it would be S. All right, let's randomly grab what is next. All right. Next up is the Moon Witch Oracle. I love this deck. I found this deck on Etsy. I absolutely adore this deck. I think this deck also pairs beautifully with the Ethereal Visions. It's a little bit darker, but it still has that same sort of like soft illustrations with that kind of foiling. This has gold foiling. Let me just show you. So first of all, we love, comes in a tuck box. Love the size of the tuck box. Beautiful, lots of details. I love the black with the colors. Like, this just could not be more up my alley. This deck is beautiful, and I knew the second that I saw it, I needed it. It couldn't be more me. Come on, I'm a Cancer rising. Okay, the moon. And it comes with its own little guidebook, and I really like the size of this guidebook. It has about a full page, if not more than that, to describe each card. When I got this, it was like really new, so they might have an updated guidebook. It is a little bit like oddly formatted. It feels very self-published, but I'm not mad at that. If anything, I really like that. It feels more comforting. It feels like the author's really talking to me. Well, again, the box is beautiful, but these cards are even more gorgeous. The backs I absolutely adore. It is like this super gardeny floral scene with like a naked girl, but it's not like overly sexualized. It's just like pretty. These sides are gilded with this like gold color, and then oh my god, the cards are beautiful. They're a little bit wider than normal cards. They're just beautiful. Like, I just think all of the cards are stunning. I really love pulling from this deck just because I get so excited to see what card it is I'm gonna get. And this deck encompasses a lot of different things. They have moon phases, there's different goddesses, they even talk about different like like witches' tools. And I just think in general, it is also a good learning piece. I think it can be a really beautiful, really helpful, really kind of like self-loving kind of deck, while also teaching you about like the different goddesses, which I really like. It's obviously very much geared towards femininity and all that sort of stuff, but I like it that it's not that classic Colette Baron Reed femininity that I just don't connect with. I connect with this a lot more. So obviously, as you can tell, I have no complaints about this deck. Not a single one. I love it. It's S tier. I would really recommend it. If it speaks to you, I would check it out. I think it's so worth it, and the cards have held up pretty well, and I've used it quite a bit. All right, next up, I'm going to do the 2 decks in this pouch. I don't know if I tied it up right. I can never figure it out, but I love this pouch. I think it's beautiful. I really did not like the tuck boxes that these 2 decks came in, so I got this off of Etsy a few years ago. So let's do this Oracle deck first. I've never heard anybody talk about this except for the one time I heard it in like a random video, and it sparked my interest enough for me to get it for some reason. And this is the Arthur Rackham Oracle. So the backs look different. You get to like choose the backs. I'm pretty sure this is something I also got off of Etsy. And this is another deck like the Hieronymus Bosch deck, where somebody takes an artist's work and puts it into a deck. So the person that made this deck is not the person that made this artwork, but they did choose like words and phrases and put it into this sort of deck format. And I didn't know anything about this illustrator before I purchased this deck. I just bought it because it's very haunting and it's very chilling. And the person that was talking about this deck said that it was like so honest and so to the point, because the way that this deck works is that there's just like these keywords like precaution or futility or retreat or consequence that are really just kind of biting and cutting and to the point. My favorite card is this Madrigada card. I get that a lot. But yeah, sometimes I do get a little bit hesitant to use this deck because it can be a little bit mean, and that's not something that I would normally complain about, but sometimes it can be really scary. Like it can make you really paranoid. I don't know if Arthur Rackham, if this is like fairies and he has a very strong connection to fairies, and maybe this deck has like a very mischievous kind of like fairy attached to it. I feel like it'd be a possibility, not to make myself sound crazy. It feels almost like mischievous, like it's trying to like play with your mind a little bit. So I don't reach for this deck all the time, just because like a lot of times you just kind of want like, oh, I want to start the day, so I don't really want to get into that kind of mood, you know what I mean? But I mean, you gotta give credit where credit is due. It's like doing what I asked for it to do, and what the person said it was going to do. Now here are the things that I don't like about this deck. It does not come with any sort of booklet. It just has the little phrases underneath the main word. And then the last thing that I'm not the biggest fan about is the words used. Is that this is a very big deck, but a lot of the cards have such similar feelings to them that it kind of feels like it can be a one-note sort of oracle deck. Most decks, I guess, kind of are, but this especially feels very one note, one circumstance, darkness, you know? And also there's a lot of words chosen that you don't really know, or that the word chosen does not really align with the description of what it says it is. And it's a little bit odd, a little bit confusing sometimes. It feels almost like a human didn't make this, if I'm being real with you. Like if somebody was like, oh, an AI made this tarot deck using Arthur Rackham's like pictures, I'd be like, that makes sense. Yeah, this deck is $50. So this is a pretty pricey deck. Okay, I just looked it up online, and there's like a revised and refined second edition where there's like a whole book with a booklet, and I'm so upset that I don't have that. That's like way nicer. And I remember paying $50 to $60 for this. So the price is the same, but you get so much better shit out of this. I would give this one a B, right? With the booklet and everything. But now that I find out I don't have all this stuff and it was the same price, I'm mad, and I'll put it in C tier. So yeah, it would be B, but fuck you. What the hell? Maybe getting a first edition isn't always the best idea, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Wow, weird. Same thing for the other deck. I didn't realize that I got a first edition of this deck, but I guess I did. This is the Arcana of Astrology deck. So this is a much smaller deck. That's one of my first gripes with it. The cards have been pretty warped and pretty beat up and all that sort of stuff. I've used this deck a lot. I really like this deck, but the cardstock is really not durable. So this is an astrology oracle deck. So we have the planets like Uranus here, Mars. We also have the astrology signs like Leo, Aquarius, We even have some asteroids like Chiron and Pallas, Vesta, as well as moon phases. Now, okay, so I found out that there's this like revised second edition of this deck. It's now more mass produced. It was really popular, which makes sense. I love the illustrations of all the planets and the watercolor usage, and I'm a really big fan of the way this deck looks and this deck feels. However, I'm really butthurt about the fact that I didn't get the new edition. The booklet that came with this sucked. It was so thin. It had like one word for each thing, and it was really expensive when I got it. I'm pretty sure it was about $50 because this was probably a first edition sort of Kickstarter indie deck kind of thing, which I'm very happy to support the person, obviously. So because I'm so upset that I didn't get this like way more awesome version, second edition, I'm also going to put it in C. Next deck up. All right, this one, I don't really know my feelings about. This, I'm pretty sure, is actually my newest deck. This is the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck and guidebook. It's another one of those kind of bigger animal spirit sized books. So for example, this is like the Moon Witch book, and then this is the Animal Spirit guidebook. So it's actually a little bit bigger than that. You can see here, see? So this is a chunker, honestly. This takes quite a bit of space. This is a deck, actually, if I'm not mistaken, by Colette Baron Reed that I actually still have. This is by 4 people, which is crazy that it took 4 people to do one deck. That is a little bit weird to me. I really appreciate how they have in the guidebook a picture of it and then a full page describing the card. Now this deck, I guess, is supposed to be like shamanistic principles or something like that. I don't know. All it says here, before there was time, before there was language, there were the sacred symbols. I'm very ignorant to all this, honestly, so I guess it's good that I have this oracle deck. For some reason, it's always spoken to me. It's always been like, oh, I need to get this deck, even though the illustrations don't appeal to me, and even though the style doesn't really appeal to me. For some reason, I've always felt called to it. So I finally just got it. The actual deck comes in this box, which it's okay. I like the style of box. It's just a white box. It's fine. I personally do not like the look of the backs of these cards. It's just not really my style. This is like the color scheme of the deck, but I do appreciate it because I have nothing like this in my collection, and that is what I wanted it for. This kind of feels a lot more like a deck that a typical kind of tarot reader, yogi, sort of mystical, metaphysical person would have in their collection, and normally those sorts of decks don't really talk to me, but I still think that they're useful and I still have respect for them. I got this just because I felt like it had a lot of lessons to give me, and so far it has had quite a few lessons to give me, honestly. So yeah, the cards are kind of a little bit obtuse. Like this one's called Taming the Wind, and it kind of feels a little bit like the color yellow, like soured. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't know, whatever. You know, there are cards like the Journey, the Rattle, Beauty Way. I don't even know what that means. Beauty Way. That's weird. I feel like I need to be a little bit more mature and study this deck a little bit more. So I don't really know anything about it that much. So I don't know if I want to put it in B or C, but I think I actually am going to put it into C. But for now, I'm definitely keeping it in my collection. It's definitely not going anywhere. I feel like it's in here for a reason. It came into my life for a reason. I know that sounds weird. I don't really know if I would recommend it. If I lost it, I probably wouldn't get it again. I would just be like, well, if it's supposed to come into my life, then it'll come into my life. But I'm glad I have it, and I definitely won't be getting rid of it. Now, something that is the main reason why I'm giving this deck a C is because I don't connect to the illustrations, but also this booklet, it's a little bit cheesy. Like, for example, it says the essence, the invitation, and the medicine, and it was really hard to understand what that means. I guess the essence is just the vibe of the card. The invitation is what you should do with this information, and then the medicine is the reversed card meaning. Now, the only reason why I know this is because I was watching a video and somebody brought up this book and they said that. That's why it's just a C right now. But maybe it'll work its way up with the coming years. All right, the next oracle deck I'm going to talk about is actually technically called a tarot deck. This is the Demon Tarot by Ariana Osborne. Now, it's called the Demon Tarot, but this is not a tarot deck. This is an oracle deck. This has nothing to do with the Rider-Waite-Smith system. I get that they just called it a tarot deck, you know, to call it the Demon Tarot. That makes sense. But yeah, this has nothing to do with the traditional 78 card deck. There might be 78 cards here, but basically they're demons. It goes off of the Infernal Dictionary, and it kind of summarizes each demon and gives you a little picture and a little bit of a backstory to each one, while also giving you a divinatory meaning. But yes, if you know me, then I think it would make sense that I would go for this deck. I've never heard anybody talked about it. I'm pretty sure I was just looking up Demon Tarot or Demon Oracle deck, and this is the one that I connected to and that came up and that I liked the most. So it's got a cool little box. The top kind of comes off like this, and then the book is very big. It's like a whole booklet. I was kind of hoping it would be even more of a book that you could like literally read. Now it's actually a really beautiful book. Like, look at what the card looks like and then this whole print around it. I will say there are a lot of, I feel like, missing pieces. I feel like the descriptions never feel like full descriptions. I feel like they repeat themselves a lot. I feel like for a lot of the demons, there's very little things known. And then for the divinatory section, it's always like a really short description and it's always very vague, and I wish there was more information. And so if you have any book recommendations or whatever it might be, recommendations to kind of find more about all these like legions of demons and all this stuff and all the lore around it, I'm really interested, so let me know. But I really like this deck. I think that the cards are beautiful, and I also just kind of enjoy learning the different tropes of demons and seeing a different dimension to these things, because, you know, they're considered bad, but there's always a little piece of good and bad in each of them, and I'm always interested in that kind of dichotomy, which is why I really like this deck. And it's not always mean. Like, honestly, the Arthur Rackham Oracle is way crueler and way meaner than this deck. I find this deck to actually be really nice. Like, sometimes I honestly usually go for this deck when I'm like, be real with me. And I'm like, oh, that's actually like kind of sweet. I kind of get where it's coming from. Aw. So I could not recommend this deck more. I love it. And if you're into demon lore and learning all that stuff, I would definitely go for it. So I am going to give this deck an A rating. And this is above the Animal Spirit deck. The only reason why it's not getting an S is because I just feel like the book doesn't look like it's lacking, but I promise you, if you got this deck and you started to read the book more, you'd understand that it feels like it's missing a little something something. So that is why it gets an A tier and not an S tier, but it is a very high A tier. And if anything happened to this deck, I would buy it again. I would repurchase. I'm going to keep this deck in my collection forever. I would recommend it to you. It just gets an all around thumbs up to me. Next up is the Mystical Sisters Oracle. So I got this deck because I wanted to study goddesses and I wanted to try and find more of a connection to them, understand the lore more, understand the myths more. And I just found this deck to be the one that I was able to kind of find and come across. Now, this art style, I'm not the biggest fan of, and I got it knowing that I wasn't the biggest fan of this art style. I don't really like the outside picture. I love that it's in a box. I will say that. I severely appreciate this box. I don't mind the booklet. It's pretty thin, but it has decent descriptions of each card. I haven't been that disappointed. So this is what the card backs look like. I appreciate that you can reverse them, although I don't appreciate how they look because I think they look kind of ugly, but that's okay. Again, I knew this wouldn't be totally my vibe. Now, what was weird and surprised me about this deck when I got it was that I actually did like the art style of some of the cards. Like this one that just turned up, Gypsy Queen. I've gotten this one a few times. I think it's a really pretty card. It really speaks to me. This Snake Charmer card I think is really nice. I like this Mind Garden card as well. It's a lot more psychedelic and a lot more trippy, some of the cards, than I expected. And those are the cards that I kind of tend to find myself more drawn to. But it does kind of feel like sometimes like there's different artists working on this deck. Like it doesn't feel like the same artist did all these cards. Like let me show you some that I really don't like that feel very different to those. Now this just might be my personal taste, but this Mania card I feel like I should really like. I mean, I'm a manic crazy bitch, but I just don't really find myself drawn to at all. Same with this Bast card. I just don't like this art style. I feel like it comes from a totally different deck. Like even this card, Hecate, I felt like they could have done so much more with, and I just think it is such an unimpressive card and does not really represent the goddess well to me personally. But overall, all in all, I do like this deck. It does satisfy what I got it for, which is learning and connecting more with the goddesses, connecting more with my femininity, learning more about myth and lore, who I'm interested, who's trying to talk to me, who I might want to work with, like all that stuff I really like. It's about $20 to $23, so it's a good price point. So overall, I actually do really like this deck. It's not my favorite, most amazing deck ever, but I definitely really enjoy it, and I definitely reach for it a lot. I'm debating if I should put it in A or B, but I think just overall, because I'm not totally fully sparked and like inspired by the artwork all the time, I'm going to put it in B because it is a very solid staple in my decks, but I wouldn't just like recommend that as one of my favorite decks to somebody because I don't feel like it represents me very well, if that makes sense. The next Oracle deck I love very, very, very much, and I'm very excited to talk about. This is the Abandoned Oracle by Deviant Moon Inc., you know, also known as Patrick Valenza. This is my third deck of his, so by now you are probably familiar with him. So it took me a few tries, but I finally got it right with this deck, and I picked out one that I absolutely love. When I got this deck, I was a lot more understanding of what I was doing in my practice. I had a better comprehension of tarot and oracle. I think I had a better understanding of myself, and I really love this deck. I'm so happy I purchased this. This may seem a little bit odd, but this deck is actually basically about following an abandoned child throughout their life. So it is a very depressing story. You know, this is obviously one of the pictures used. This is the first card, the infant, you know, the abandoned infant by the light post. But I think that we all connect to the feeling of abandonment at some point in our lives. Even if that isn't literally being left as an infant by a street pool, we all understand the feeling of abandonment. And when this deck came into my life was just around the time that my mom had passed. And so I was definitely feeling this deck very heavy, and I connected to this deck in a very deep way. Again, this is like his other decks. This is a very haunting deck. This can be a very depressing deck. This can be a very honest deck. This can be even a very like paranoid deck. But I think it's a lot softer than the other two that I've showed you because there is this feeling of like childlike innocence as an undertone that runs through it. So it, for some reason, at least to me, feels a little bit more imaginative and fantasy-like than the rest of his decks, which feel a lot of times just more bleak. And again, this is another one of his decks that doesn't come with a booklet, that has a tuck box. I took the time one day to read through the entire PDF from the first card to the last card as a story, and it was actually really beautiful and very emotional. It kind of goes through, instead of the stages of grief, it goes through like the stages of abandonment. Yeah, I would really recommend this deck if you are like me and you have maybe some thwarted Cancer energy, like my Cancer rising. Look at this card that just showed up. As I say, thwarted Cancer rising. I'm definitely giving this deck an S tier. I want to purchase all of Patrick Valenza's decks. I love the backings. Again, they're reversible. I love the coloring of his deck. I got this one in the original coloring and I like it so much more. I don't hear many people talk about this Oracle deck, which I am not too surprised by. I feel like it does have a very specific demographic and a lot of people might find it a little bit off-putting to get this deck, I think, but I find it very healing. So we've got a pretty even playing field here, honestly, and I haven't rated anyone a single D. We haven't had a real big fail yet, but this one was a big fail, so let's do it, okay? This is The Witch's Year. It says Modern Magic in 52 Cards by Claire Gaugarty. I might have said that wrong. I love the box. I got this because I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. The Witch's Year? Oh, this seems so interesting. Oh, I'm wanting to learn more about like Samhain and Yule and Imbolc and all that stuff. This will be great. But I didn't understand that this wasn't a tarot deck. I didn't know what I thought it was. I'd never seen anybody talk about it and I thought it was really cool. And so I was like, I'm going to take the jump and I'm going to get it. I never get anything on an impulse purchase. I just saw it and I got it, and I shouldn't have done that because it was not what I thought it was going to be. It does go through each holiday. The cards are really pretty, but you don't draw them like you do tarot cards. They're just information. For some reason, I don't know why it's not a book. It's just cards of information. So this is Mabon, or however you say it, and then on the back, it describes the holiday. It does that for each holiday. For example, it's like, oh, here's a spell that would be helpful for the Mabon holiday. Here are some plants that are very common during the holiday. Here are some crystals very common to the holiday, you know, all that sort of stuff, rituals, whatever it might be, which is cool. But I don't care. Like, I really don't care. If I would have known that's what this was, I wouldn't have gotten it. I don't know what I thought it was, but I thought it was going to be really pretty. astrology because I do like the graphic style on it. I do like the colors used. I think these cards are really pretty, but I just would rather have this information in a book because it's just not enough stuff to get you anywhere. And if you're wondering, yes, I have given this a chance. I have read through all of these ones and I still have these ones to go. I've been reading them throughout the year for the seasons, and I'm just kind of unimpressed. I'm just kind of unimpressed by the whole thing. And I do definitely regret getting it. I would not repurchase this if I lost it. I might rehome this one day. Who knows? If there's anything in my collection that's at risk of going right now, it is definitely this one. But I haven't gotten rid of it yet. I haven't. I don't know why. I still think it's kind of pretty, I guess. But I'm putting it at D. Definitely putting it at D. Would not really recommend. Don't really see the point of it. Not really interested in it. Not really my thing. Totally fucked up with that one. Yeah, let's move on. Next oracle deck. This is a very popular deck. You've definitely heard of this one. We all know and love it. It is the Moonology deck by Yasmin Boland, artwork by Nyx Rowan. This is a 44 card deck. It again has this lovely little box that I love so much. It's very pretty. It's got darker colors to it. This is another deck that I did not pick out but was a gift to me, but I think they did a good job. It comes with a pretty good guidebook. It's pretty thick and they have a pretty good description of each card, honestly. This deck is pretty infamous in the tarot oracle sphere. Most people have it and a lot of tarot readers use it on pick a cards and everything, and it does make sense. I think it's a really beautiful deck. The guidebook is really good. Each card has a full page, so I like the guidebook. It's in black and white, but that doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. And then let's take a look at the cards. So the backs are beautiful. You've probably seen these before. They are reversible, are they not? Oh no, they're not. I really like the size of the cards. I'm pretty sure that the Moon Witch, the Mystical Sisters, and the Moonology deck are all similar card sizes. I think these illustrations are beautiful. They're a little bit darker while still remaining kind of in that ethereal vibe. I don't love it. It's not like 10 out of 10 when I see the artwork for this deck. I'm like, it's so gorgeous. Like, it's not like the Moon Witch deck where I'm like, oh, I'm so taken by it and all that sort of stuff. But I do think it is pretty. I think some cards are nicer than others. Like, I don't really like this card. I think it looks like it's a part of like The Grinch Who Stole Christmas or something. But a card like this or like this where it kind of just shows you a darker picture of the moon, I do think is really pretty and is pretty much up my alley. So this deck will run you just under $20, around $18, $17, which is a pretty great price for this deck. And basically this deck is what it says. It's a deck about the moon. So it talks about the different moon phases. It also has a card for the full moon in each of the 12 zodiac signs, as well as the new moon in each of the 12 zodiac signs, all that sort of stuff, right? Is this the Moonology deck? Okay, it's what it says. It makes sense. And I think this deck is kind of a staple in anybody's collection. I think this is a good deck to have. I don't feel like I connect that personally to it. I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite decks and I stand behind this deck and this deck is me and I love it. But also, I would definitely miss it if I didn't have it and I would want to repurchase it, and I do use it quite often. I definitely think this deck is a solid B tier. Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad I have it. I will definitely keep it. I would recommend it to you, especially if you're into astrology, if you follow the moon, or if you have any strong Cancer in your chart. I think it's just a good purchase. All right, since we are talking about astrology decks, let's talk about what I thought was going to be my end-all be-all of astrology decks, because I was a little bit disappointed by that Arcana of Astrology deck, because I was like, yes, it is good, I will use it, but it is not quite everything. You know, it didn't include the houses, it didn't include all of the planets, it didn't include everything I wanted it to. And I thought this little box set was going to do just that. And I do like it, but I don't love it. So yes, this is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun by Caroline Smith and John Astrop. I would love to create my own astrology deck. I feel like nobody's done it perfect, but everybody's done it. So I'm like, I don't want to do it because everybody's done it, but nobody's done it just right, you know? Okay, so I do like how this box set is done. It's very original. It comes out like that. Ooh, it's nice. It is a little bit annoying sometimes, I will say, but it's cute. We like the creativity. The color's even fun. It's pretty well protected in there, so I do like the box. It's a little bit on the big side, but that's okay. It kind of has a similar thing to the Demon Tarot where the cards just kind of hang out loosely. They're not supposed to, but they just kind of wind up shuffled all around in there because there's no actual box for the cards. But that's okay, whatever. I don't love it. The booklet is actually really nice. It's a big booklet. It is got a lot of detail, a lot of writing. This is a really good tool if you're trying to learn astrology, because basically the way that this deck works, it basically says all the planetary placements in astrology. So for example, Mars in Scorpio. Go to the next one, you'll see Sun in Leo, you know, and then Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Pisces, right? All the way until Saturn. It does not do Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. I like this deck. I'm not anti this deck, but it's just not quite perfect. I'm not a big fan of the illustrations. I think they're a little bit obtuse. They're doing so much that it's hard to read. I'm like, just focus on one thing, focus on one image. You know, you're trying to include all of these ideas in there to the point that you don't have a single idea, so it's a little bit odd. Some are easier to read than others, and you can see also that the cards have warped themselves just because I guess I am a little bit hard with my cards, and I guess I just wasn't fully in love with this deck. I don't know why. There's just something missing. You know, in the booklet, it has the description. So let's say you get Mercury in Leo. It has a full page all about Mercury in Leo. But my thing is that it just tells you the description about what Mercury in Leo in a natal chart is, and then the actual divinatory meaning is very small. It's just like this little paragraph at the end here. And I know what the descriptions are. You know, I know what Mercury in Leo is. I know what Venus in Sagittarius is. I don't need somebody telling me. So, I mean, you know, if you do need somebody telling you, this booklet is amazing. I'm glad that they have this booklet. But for some reason, I just didn't connect to this in the way that I was hoping I would. And so I can't really put my finger on what's wrong with it, but I definitely can't name what has made me fall in love with it either. And I'm going to put it in the B category. And I know I was just like up talking the other ones in this category a lot more, that it may seem like, oh, this is a C, but I like this too much to be a C. I genuinely do use this. I genuinely do like it. It just isn't something that I reach for as commonly as I thought I was going to. Okay, we're coming to the end here. We only have 2 more decks left. So the next deck is this. This is Numerology Guidance Cards by Michelle Buchanan. And again, it comes in this little box that I really like. So I got this deck because I wanted a numerology deck, because I've been getting more into numerology, especially around the time that I purchased this deck, which was maybe 2 years ago. And when I searched numerology tarot deck, this was the only one I could find. Now, I don't know if it's still like that. There might be more numerology decks out there now, but when I was looking for one, this was the only one that I could find in existence, and so I had no other choice. And I was disgruntled by that because I am very unimpressed with the illustrations on the cards. First of all, I don't like the card backs, and basically every single image on the back is the same. So it's always this little star pattern no matter what. It just has the color that changes with the keyword and the number, which if you ask me, I think is pretty lame and pretty boring and uninspired. I would really love for somebody to come out with a different one that maybe, you know, talks more to, you know, the girls out there that like gold foiling and cute designs or something. I don't know. Numerology doesn't have to be boring and mathematical, even though it kind of is. But I do have a lot of respect and appreciation for this deck, and this is a deck that I use all the time, that I will use for daily draws. And there is something that is very neutral about it that I do kind of appreciate sometimes, because there's not a certain theme or tone to this deck. It just is strictly what it is. And so it doesn't feel negative or positive. It doesn't feel mean or nice. It just feels very neutral. With that, there is, I feel like, a level of accuracy that comes with that. And I also do quite like the guidebook. The guidebook is a little bit gaudy. How do I say that? Like G-O-D. Like it is a little bit, you know, higher power, spiritual, wooji, sometimes a little bit too much for me, you know, give it all up, very Piscean, which is funny because the images are not very Piscean. It's like super Virgo, but then the book, sometimes the advice can be a little bit too much like, Jesus, take the wheel, throw your hands up and give it to God, which sometimes I do need, honestly. But for the most part, it does help teach numerology. It does give good divinatory advice, and I do find myself having a very positive connection connection to this deck, and I do use it quite on the daily, even though I'm not really attracted specifically to this deck, if that makes sense. So the price point makes sense. This deck will run you around the $23 price point, and I do think it is worth it. I really like this deck, and I'm really happy I get it. I use it all the time, and so for all those reasons, I'm actually going to give it an A rating, which is surprising to me because it's the one that I'm like so not connected with the images of, but I like it. I use it so much that it has to be A. If I connected more with the images, it would be an S deck, but I really like it. Oh my god, we are at finally the very last deck. I cannot believe this has been a very long journey that we have taken together. The last deck we are talking about is, and I saved this for last for no reason. It's kind of a lame one to save for last. This is the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck by Kim Kranz, which is funny. I just realized, didn't I start with the Animal Spirit deck by her and I'm ending with this one? That's really funny. So this deck is a weird one. I think there's a reason why this one is not as popular as the Animal Spirit deck. First of all, this box is quite a big chunker. It's honestly also very heavy, like noticeably heavier than other boxes. It's kind of a bitch to store. I do like the fact that it is a box. I do like the attention to detail, but I don't know. This one feels a little bit forced. So I got this deck because I really like the idea of the archetypes thing. In my head, I'm like, oh, astrology is just archetypes, right? It is these universal patterns and these universal ideas. But I should have gone with like the archetype cards, I think is what they're called, because that's what I was really wanting. Whereas this is a lot more spiritual woojie, you know, like the one, the dead end, the sustainer, the shaman, the maiden, the hunter, the flame, the tear, the kiss, the prayer, the mirror. You know, it's I just see it as a little bit melodramatic. The book is nice. It's a hefty book. You have a full, you know, left and right page for each card. Now, here's the main thing that everybody has a problem with that I totally understand where they're coming from, and that is the actual cards. So this is what the cards are held in. It's this like circular little thing because the cards are, you guessed it, circular. And I don't mind circular cards, honestly, but the issue with this is that there's too many. There's way too many cards and they're way too big for it to be circular. These are so hard to shuffle. I cannot shuffle them all at the same time, and I don't have this problem with any other deck. I just don't think it was the right choice to do this many cards and then make them this big, thick, and circular. I also don't like the backs. That was my immediate response when I got this deck. I didn't know the backs looked like this. It's like a fake diamond, but I don't know why. I don't like it. I don't get the connection to it. And I think it just looks poorly printed out and cheesy. This is probably my least favorite backs to any of my decks. Now, the actual cards, I do like. I do use this deck pretty frequently. I did just recently try to like really study it and really use it and really connect to it, but it's just not my favorite. It's a little bit all over the place. It feels a little bit unfocused. It feels like it was too much to take on while also not really taking on anything specific. The cards are half collage, half her art style, which I don't like collage, and I'm not the biggest fan of her art style. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't really know why I got this deck, but it's not a deck that like I absolutely hate, even though it's sounding like I do. I don't think it's like a useless, worthless piece of shit deck. I keep it, I use it. I'm not against it. I like it, I will say. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this, though. I don't think I would. I would recommend the Animal Spirit deck 1,000 times over this one. It's just clunky, big, awkward to use, and the messages aren't as clear as I'd want them to be, and it's hard to understand when I should pull this out. Like, what questions do I ask this deck? What circumstances do I use this deck? Like, that's not a problem that I have with my other decks, but this is a problem I have with this one. So I'm going to put this in C, but it's the lowest level C. It's not D. I don't feel that angry about it. Like, I feel angry about the Witch's Year. I like regret that deck. I like don't know what it is and why it's there, right? But the Archetypes deck I do like. I do understand why it's there, and I'm not that against it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't run out to repurchase it, but I also would not rehome it either. So yes, that is all of my Oracle decks. Let's just go through the list one last time really quick. At S, we have Moon Witch and Abandon Oracle. I love those two. Could not recommend them more. Would definitely keep them on S tier. The next Next up we have, and I put them in this order too. Let's do this. Okay. Next up on A tier, we have the Demon Tarot, the Numerology Guidance cards, and the Animal Spirit deck, which I would also put them in that order from favorite to least favorite. Okay, the next up we have B tier, which I would honestly order it this way as well. We have the Oracle of Black Enchantment, Mystical Sisters, Moonology, and the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. And then in C tier, we have the Rackham Oracle, Arcana of Astrology, Mystical Shaman Oracle, and the Archetypes Oracle. Also weirdly would put them in that order as well from favorite to least favorite. And then in D tier, we have the Witch's Year. So yeah, I like most of my decks, which makes me feel good. I don't hate or despise all of my decks or anything like that. But thank you so much for watching. Again, I sell birth chart readings on shainaemilyastrology.com. I have an astrology TikTok and I have a personal Instagram. If you stuck it out and watched both of these videos, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the shit out of you. All right, yeah, I'm peace out now. Bye.